Hello and welcome into the Sporting Pod. Along with Tony Allegretti and Mauricio Ruiz, I'm Cole Pepper. Coming up today on the pod, the U.S. women's national team falls in the She Believes Cup, what the result tells us about the future, and what the Sporting JAX Foundation has been up to lately. Plus, FA Cup sets on the way. We look ahead to the other international cup that we're interested in right now. That's all straight ahead. We are fed by the Bearded Pig, locally owned and operated with locations in San Marco and Jax Beach. Make sure you swing by the Bearded Pig for great barbecue and great times. There it is. Tony Allegretti right here, live and in snorting person.
That was an actual pig.
That was a pig that you brought with you here to the Gemstone Media Studios. Mauricio has pulled over to the side of the road in Portugal. Mal, let me just ask this because Tony and I were wondering about this before we started the pod. Which side of the road do you pull off on in Portugal?
Oh, actually, it's in the middle. It's neither. They're a little confusing over here, so they just kind of create some middle pathways.
Okay. So that would be left. That would be left.
On the right side.
Yeah. Okay.
Right side driving.
It is on the right side here. They do things traditional to the U.S. as well. It's on the right hand side. Even though I have seen a couple of UK-based cars that do have the steering wheel on the opposite side.
Weirdos.
Well, at least that's not as big an adjustment for you for sure. All right, let's talk about the United States women's national team falling in the last game. Not really the final. It turned out to be, but it wasn't a tournament. It was a round robin. But losing to Japan in the finals of the She Believes Cup 2-1. A couple of early goals in this game, and it was 1-1 at halftime, and then Japan scoring 5 minutes into the second half. We should point out who wasn't in the game. The entire triple espresso line of Rodman, Swanson, and Smith. Smith has a new married name now, Wilson. And no Rose Lavelle either. And, of course, replacing Elisa Nair in goal is an ongoing situation. Jane Campbell played 2 of the 3 matches with the final being included in that. So, Mal, let's start with you. How much should we take out of this particular matchup, and what do you think the value of it was for the United States looking forward long-term to the World Cup in a couple of years?
Yeah, I will put it into 2 different buckets. One of them being that the world has caught up, and so we should not expect the U.S. to just be as dominant in the sense that there will be no longer competition. Japan is a very, very good women's soccer program. And so playing against Japan and losing 2-1, it's not something that you should, send the cavalry just yet. And the other bucket is that it's still a lot of, changes. You mentioned the triple espresso is not there. It's not like, you're short of options up top. But then you have a new goalkeeper. You're still testing out some new players. You just kind of came off of that futures camp. So there's still a little bit early in the process where you should consider that it's still very much of like a makeup of a different, players. But go back to my point one, you're not the only good program in the world anymore.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And Japan was the best team. If you talk about just the total performance in this event, they were the best in terms of goal scoring and so forth. We also saw, Tony, a little bit of a different approach. Instead of a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 utilized by the United States. And that saw Kat Macario up top, and then you had the likes of Lindsey Horan playing in her normal number 10 spot, and Ali Sentnor, who scored coming up off the wing. So this was sort of a live lab, I think, in some regards for the U.S. women's team.
Yeah, and Gurma was out, right?
Yeah, Gurma as well. Yeah,
like you can almost tell if there's more than a couple goals or there's 2 goals or whatever. You can almost tell that she wasn't playing.
Right.
Like she's an absolute and then she's playing in Europe now, right? I think she just got picked. Is it Chelsea?
Yeah,
yeah. So
Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, these tournaments are what they are. We want to win them. I'm sure we enter them to continue to fill the trophy case. But good on Japan. I mean, they're building an absolute program on both sides.
8th in the world, by the way, Japan in the most recent rankings.
Yeah, it's not embarrassing. We're doing a lot of stuff. One thing I think to mention just with the local tip, and I don't think she got on, but Mandy McGlynn.
She played the second game in goal for the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Jacksonville
Sandalwood
name.
product.
Yep.
Sure.
Sandalwood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know her mom was a coach at Hendricks Avenue Elementary, which I do know the song.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's a song at Hendricks Avenue?
Yeah, I'll have to bring someone in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Understood.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, we will continue to follow what happens in the rest of this year. No major tournaments on the calendar right now for the U.S. women's national team as it sits now. They'll be adding in some friendlies and so forth. But again, with the men's team, the timeline is much shorter because next year is the World Cup. For the women's team, they've got a couple of years. Yeah. But it'd be interesting to see when we see all of the components on the field together at the same time again and see how it all looks as they try to bring it all together. Speaking of women's soccer.
Heard of it.
Gentlemen, season tickets are now on sale for the USL Super League 2025-2026 season. Sporting JAX debuts the first professional women's team in Jacksonville in August. Season tickets start as low as $10 per game for students, $12 per game for supporters, and $15 for general admission. Premium, reserve, and field seating is also available. Those field side seats are going fast. You should join the movement now by securing your season tickets today. You can receive a limited edition inaugural season scarf for an offer that won't last long. Act fast and be a part of herstory and her story and history and join the movement. Just go to sportingjax.com/tickets. All right, let's talk about the Sporting JAX Foundation. Tony, on Saturday, you will be out at Warrington Park for the final installment of this first phase of these free clinics that Sporting JAX Foundation has been putting on in the neighborhood. Give us a kind of an overview of what this program is, and then we're going to hear from Mike Johnson, who was one of the coaches who was heavily involved in this.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're committed to, it's really the sort of sole focus right now mission of the Sporting JAX Foundation is to bring soccer to places that it's not. Not every part of our city has access to soccer. We all know in America that soccer can be a pay-to-play adventure, yet there are a ton of kids, and I know this from coaching at Andrew Jackson, without access who really are into it, who want that access. And so we wanted to set up a way to hit these neighborhoods, bring high-level coaching and training and fun to kids, and then at the end we really we break bread, so we eat food, and I'm on the grill, etc. And it's a lot of fun. Some of the things, and we're really doing it. This thing in Deep Arlington was about having it be accessible for families to walk up. Not everybody can drive a car or make kind of these commitments. We wanted folks to be able to sort of roll up, walk up, and the family interest from all levels was so good. But I also want to shout out our coaching, like almost all of our sort of high-level coaches are former college coach, former high school high-level coaches, and they're kind of our old guard. And then we've had such beautiful volunteerism from the JU men's team, the UNF women's team especially has been out, and so these kids are getting really high level, and from week 1 to week 4, they're really picking up the game, and we're really seeing some results.
All right, before we hear from Mike Johnson, I wanted to ask you this question: how did you get the word out in that community? Did you just go door to door?
No, so there's a wonderful little elementary school right next door. It's called Woodland Acres. Woodland Acres is definitely a small neighborhood school. We worked with their principal Platts, whose son actually plays for Orlando City B. So great guy. He's also a former JU basketball player. So Mike Johnson knew him.
Sean Platts.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, Sean Platts. I call him Principal
Yeah,
Flats.
yeah.
Try to keep it formal.
I called his games in college.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Super good guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, great little school. We made flyers. We did. There's a lot of ESOL kids there, so we did. Front in English, back in Spanish. And anyway, and then we just really kept it in the neighborhood. Talked to the churches. Talked to the families, and again. Really wanted to keep it hyper local, which is what, and this was a basically almost like a pilot program. We will definitely be back at Warrington Park, but we're also exploring some other parks in less soccer accessible neighborhoods.
That's great. Well, here's from Mike Johnson, former JU head coach, who's been coaching at Florida Elite for years as well, and he's really the guy now who's sort of. He's really embraced this, urban soccer initiative.
Yeah, I don't want to stick a title on Mike, but if I had to, it'd be like technical director of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Yeah. And I asked him what the reaction has been to these clinics.
No, this is really nice. We've been doing it now for 4 weeks. We have a 5-week program planned for the kids. The community, the parents, the kids have been great. I mean, obviously. We've attracted college players out to come and work with the kids, UNF, JU men. The kids have been fantastic. The nice thing about this whole principle of what we're trying to do with the urban city soccer is the kids all leave here with a smile on their face, and they're excited to come back. Great reception from the parents. They are appreciative. They thank us for what we're doing, and they want us to be around, and established for a long period of time.
You're also introducing some skills and a little bit about the game to a neighborhood that doesn't necessarily have that kind of access all the time like some others in the area will.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the goal of the whole program, is to take soccer into areas where kids don't have access. So to come into parks like this, show up, put some goals up, put some equipment out, have some energetic volunteers to help promote the game and get the kids excited about the sport. Obviously, it's small numbers in the beginning, but we're seeing a lot of growth each week. The numbers increased, and we've got bigger plans in other areas moving forward.
You mentioned the UNF girls women's team out here, and JU's men's team has been out here. They're getting something out of this as well, it looks like.
Absolutely. The girls and the guys have been fantastic. Like I said, they get here, they're very engaged with the kids, and that's not always the case when you get volunteers to come out, especially, collegiate athletes. But these kids have been outstanding. Both groups, great ambassadors for their program. They come with a passion. They bring enthusiasm. They show the kids great attention, and everyone walks away on Saturdays after we're done with a big smile.
And this is really just the start of a long journey.
Absolutely. This is the beginning. We have big plans. We're establishing goals moving forward with different programs involving different communities. And again, we want these to be long-lasting programs, not just, 5 Saturdays. We want to develop soccer in these communities, standalone situations where they can have access to soccer year-round.
There you go. Mauricio, are there benefits for college teams as well who take part in this sort of thing? I could see the smiles on the faces of the UNF women's team, but I wonder if there's a component to camaraderie and team building to this as well for the college kids.
Oh, cool. I mean, the benefits are endless. And, the easiest one, as you mentioned, is just the direct benefit of being able to do something outside of your bubble. College athletics is very much, especially Division I athletics, with expectation and the demand athletically and academically. It's a bit of a bubble. So when you kind of step out of your bubble in anything that you do, it definitely brings the team closer together, especially if you're giving back to the community. But outside of it, and benefits that the kids in college won't even rip, kind of right away. But the giving back to the community, being a part of it, and really impacting kids that didn't have the access to it. I know on the men's side, I can speak to it more in depth because we recruited quite a bit of kids from third world countries, whether they're first-time generations Americans, but their parents came from third world countries, under-resourced communities. They relate to these kids. They relate to soccer not being accessible to them as much as equipment and other items. So this for them is very relatable, and they can really look at the kids and see them in their shoes. And that's why you see smiles on their face as they're doing it. They really enjoy an experience like this.
It's a real win-win, and then you can add another win if you ever wanted to see Tony Allegretti cooking up some chicken wings. We'll show that on the Sporting JAX Report on Saturday at 12:30 on NBC 12. And I heard the wings were a big hit.
They were a big hit, and it was kind of funny because I always get kudos for my chef skills, and it's really kind of funny because I'm mostly just like grilling out hot dogs, or one weekend I made pancakes, and it very sort of low threshold chef action. But then one of the parents brought chicken wings, which added a whole new dynamic. But I do think I pulled it off.
Yeah,
so,
they look good.
Hey, I want to add one more thing, and this is I think super important because this is the foundation's mission right now to do this. But I also want to say that this work is being done all over Jacksonville, which is tremendous. And we know and want to, I know the Armada's doing this on the east side, which is excellent. There's an outfit called SCAR, which is part of Coastal Kicks on the north side, which is doing this. And so we eventually would love to help all those programs and do it. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to be programmatic about it. But eventually, I think there's going to be ways that Sporting JAX can support these other programs as well as collaboration and playing, matches. That's the other thing. I mean, when you get these things going, eventually you want to bring competition into it too.
I will say as well, and I'm going to make a bit of a leap here, but if you think about how soccer teams started in most of the world pre-America World Cup and MLS, it was neighborhood teams.
Yeah.
And it was teams from
church. Everton's a church team. Yeah. Celtic, all the, many of the greatest teams that we talk about in the rest of the show started from community.
Yeah. And so not that this is going to turn into, pro teams, but there is such a history of representing the neighborhood. It's not necessarily representing the city or the region. That's become the thing with professional sports. But in the early stages, it was all about representing your neighborhood, and that's something that these kids are starting to experience.
I love that. And just to jump on, the more that we see these like League One teams grow, League Two teams, these lower, pre-professional and smaller professional places where they thought, we'll never see pro soccer in these little areas, and like Chattanooga has 2 pro teams, so we're well on our way in America.
All right, you can see more about the Sporting JAX Foundation Warrington Park Clinics on Saturday, 12:30 on NBC 12. It's a little later than usual. Usually we're at noon, but this week 12:30 with no Premier League games on NBC. Usually we'll just lead right into the Premier League coverage on NBC. Then you can join us every Tuesday night at 6 for the Sporting JAX Soccer Hour on 1010XL. You can listen online and on demand at 1010XL.com. All right, let's talk a little FA Cup because, as mentioned, no Premier League matches coming up this weekend. But the 5th round of the FA Cup is here. And Mauricio, I just love anything like this, the U.S. Open Cup, FA Cup, you name it. When you get these, second and third and fourth division clubs with an opportunity to really make a difference, I think everybody's going to be curious to see what happens with Plymouth Argyle after knocking off Liverpool. Now they take on Man City. Congratulations, Plymouth Argyle. This is your prize, is Man City. But there are some very interesting matchups here in the 5th round of the FA Cup.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to face a wounded Man City. They're out of Champions League. They're pretty much out of the Prem after losing to Liverpool last week. And so the only thing they kind of have going for them is potentially FA Cup to get any silverware. So, like everyone else is still balancing their roster. We're talking about, Aston Villa and some other clubs. They're not balancing their roster. Man City will be as healthy as they can possibly put a team on the field. They'll be hosting Plymouth Argyle. So, this might be the end of the lineup for them, but what a good ride. And that's what the fun of the FA Cup is about. I'm actually looking, Cole, games like Bournemouth and Wolves, Crystal Palace and Millwall, and then definitely Preston and Burnley, 2 teams still in the lower divisions, to see who can kind of get to that final stage. Preston North End is an interesting club right now, and they're doing a lot of good things, but the cup set that we talk about all the time between some of these lower division teams, there's still quite a bit of them alive, and some of them will get through into the final round.
Do you have a cup set prediction for this round, Mal?
Ooh, it's Cardiff City versus Aston Villa, because Aston Villa is still very much in Champions League contention, and they're still in the Prem in the run for top 4, top 5. So I would say that Cardiff City probably has a really good chance right now.
I like that one because a lot of this is about roster management. A team like Man U, who hosts Fulham, the defending champs of the FA Cup, but also they need something positive. So they're going to be a team a club that would likely put a lot of resources to this matchup because things are not going great in the Premier League for them. And I'll be interested to see Newcastle and Brighton. I think that might be the most attractive matchup when you just look on paper at the meetings this week.
Yeah, my cup set prediction is Wolves. I think Wolves is much better than their record, and Bournemouth I think has lost 3 out of the last 6. For somebody that were really flying, and I think Wolves is getting their mojo back.
Yeah, they're starting to put some things together for sure.
Well, it's funny when you think about Bournemouth. They've lost a few as of late, but they've had a really good run. If teams like Bournemouth or Wolves or even Crystal Palace that's not having a good season at all, if they can get themselves to Wembley, this will make really kind of get them to the next level of a club like them, which are trying to make moves. Everyone else, if you look at Nottingham Forest, they may not win the Prem and they may kind of get knocked out at the very end. If they can get to Wembley in the final of an FA Cup, that's a year to remember.
All right, good stuff. We'll circle back to the Premier League next week. We'll have more about what's happening going forward. We expect some big announcements in the coming weeks as well. It's going to be a big spring for Sporting JAX. We're just around the corner from the start of the USL Championship season. We'll detail that a little bit more next week as well. Boy, it is a busy time for soccer fans here in Jacksonville. A lot to cover, and we'll be discussing it right here on the Sporting Pod. For Tony Allegretti, for Mauricio Ruiz, and thanks to Mike Johnson as well, I'm Cole Pepper. Thanks for listening to the Sporting Pod.